All right, so before we get into this bullshit, real quick, I'm just going to let you guys all know that no, I'm not going to try and sell you something. No, I'm not going to try and push fucking Raid Shadow Legends. I don't give a fuck about ad revenue, sponsorships, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to speak from the heart, pure stream of consciousness. So if swearing and profanity offends you, well, you can stop now. Right, so with that horse shit out of the way, let's just get straight into this. Borderlands 4 is a disappointing, almost insulting, lazy pile of corporate soulless rubbish. And this is coming from a guy who back in 2009 was farming Chromarax for pearlescence, a guy who back in 2012, 13, whatever, was taking every Vault Hunter to fucking OP8, OP10, whatever on Digistruct Peak, the type of asshole that would spend hours in Sawtooth Cauldron doing laps around the arena to open chests to get loot midgets. Okay, so I'm not just some random guy whose first game is Borderlands 4. I would be what you consider like a series dinosaur, an OG, whatever corny fucking term you want to put to it. Basically, a guy who's been there since the very beginning. So now that I have presented my certified virgin for life card here, I am going to break down a few points where I really feel Borderlands 4 or Gearbox totally fucked this game up, and I'm going to start with probably the biggest issue, and that is the open world. To put it simply, the transition from like levels or zones into a full-on open world has really hurt this series. It has really hurt the overall experience, and I think has ultimately been a mistake. If we're ever going to see a Borderlands 5 or a Wonderlands 2 or some other offshoot, I really would prefer if we return to well-designed, well-thought-out, unique, memorable zones and areas and levels, as opposed to just one big, massive open world. The reason being for this is, if I were to ask you to name me a single fucking location in Borderlands 4 that isn't the four main biomes, you know, like Terminus Range, fucking Carcadia Burns, you know, the four main segments of the map, could you actually do it? I highly doubt you could, because even I can't fucking do it. I have 100 hours or so in this game, and I can't name you a single location with the exception of the four main areas. There's no like Frostburn Canyon, for example. There's no The Dust. There's no Sawtooth Cauldron. There's not even like Skag Gully or fucking whatever. Like, you just cannot think of a single individual zone. And what this has done is it's actually ironically made the world feel so much smaller, because it only feels like there are four areas as opposed to having dozens and dozens of small interconnected zones like the previous games. You feel like it's just one big lump of an area, and then you move on to another big lump of an area. The whole world just feels so small, ironically. And this isn't obviously to ignore the fact that it has just become so fucking tedious to navigate. It's just boring to get across this map, because you might see little pockets of enemies, 3, 4, 5 guys that you stop and obliterate in 2 seconds. It's barely even worth getting off your fucking your bike or whatever that bullshit is called. Like, it's barely even worth stopping to fight them. There's a severe lack of fast travel zones. Like, virtually every single boss or sub-boss or whatever, you usually always have to go on some long-winded trek to get to them, as opposed to just opening your map, boom, teleporting straight to them. You know what I mean? Like, if they were going to go open world, they really needed to make it where you could easily navigate it, quickly navigate it, once you got to the point where, okay, I'm in the end game now, and we'll fucking get to that eventually, but I'm at the end of the game now. I just want to zip from here to here to here to kill different bosses. But like I said, virtually every boss that you ever want to get to is like a 5-10 minute navigating through caves, navigating through bunkers. Like some of the big encore bosses take, like you can see their icon on the map, but the actual entrance to them might be like 4 miles down in a little nook or cranny or hidden door, and you just have to navigate the whole thing, and it's just like, it's tedious as fuck, it's boring as fuck. This game really needs more fast travel points. You should be able to fast travel to every single boss, just straight up. Another thing that's painfully lacking in this game is the feeling of a main hub or home area. There's no like sanctuary type location where you just feel like you can go back there, chill out, pick up a few missions, mess around with slot machines, whatever. Like there are, you know, main towns in the 4 different biomes, but the sense of there being one centralized location that you always find yourself going back to, like I said, a sanctuary, is kind of disappointing. And it's weird too, because you do eventually discover the wreckage of Sanctuary 3 from Borderlands 3, and I sort of assumed like, oh, this could be, you know, like the Sanctuary 4 of Borderlands 4, where you turn the crash zone into a new hub area and you slowly build it up and repair it or whatever. But no, they just completely ignore that, really. It just becomes a testing zone for damaged dummies, which is very disappointing. And I'm fairly certain it doesn't even play the fucking Sanctuary 3 soundtrack, which is also a huge mess. So this is probably going on way too long for one fucking section, because I don't want to make this video like 3 hours long. But overall, the move to open world, it has really hurt more than it has helped. So yeah, the story again is nothing really to write home about. I was actually quite invested in it in the beginning, but then they pull that totally out of nowhere, super cringy RJ twist, where he suddenly starts going on like we live in the society fucking Joker type asshole, where he's overly theatrical and dramatic, and this bullshit about how he was experimented on and stuff. Like, it's so out of nowhere and completely destroyed any investment I had in the story. It's so cringe, actually, that it distracts from the actual main villain, the Timekeeper. So, and he's not overly hands-on, to be honest. He just kind of sits and mocks you throughout the whole game. But the RJ twist was fucking dog shit and completely derailed any interest I had in the story. You know, the new, like, obviously Borderlands 4 is a bit of a soft reboot with the whole new planet Kairos and the new cast of characters and very little returning characters, even though of course they had to fucking shoehorn in Lilith again. They just will not fucking give up on this Lilith character. But, you know, it's like, if I was to quickly summarize it, most of the new characters are at best forgettable and at worst it's just annoying, you know, like, again, Rush, he's pretty fucking one note, pretty forgettable. And then you have Zadra, who I'm assuming is supposed to be some sort of like Tannis type character. But she comes off as very flat and forgettable, and it's just, you know, yeah, it's the story, the characters, the soft reboot. It ain't a lot to write home about, to be honest. Speaking of items being rewarded to you from challenges and story missions, it cannot go without saying that like, this is mind-blowingly stupid. I do not understand what they were thinking with this. So, we have a current day Gearbox who, on the one hand, thought it was a great idea to deliver the most amount of side missions ever in any Borderlands game. Great, amazing. But yet, on the other hand, at the exact same fucking time, they thought, we will reward you with no unique side mission gear. So, let's just reiterate this. We have way more side missions than we've ever had, but for the first time in the series history, we have practically zero fucking incentive to actually run them, because there's nothing unique. Like, when you see these things, I am a huge believer that the devil is in the details. You can tell a lot about the macro from the micro, really, sometimes anyway. And that to me is one of the finest and clearest examples that the team who are currently developing this game actually have no fucking idea what they're doing. They just don't get it. It hasn't clicked. They don't know why players love this game. How could they? How could they know why players love this game and do something as fucking retarded as that? It makes no sense. You know, like, again, I'm going to fucking do it. You know, chalk one more up for the Borderlands 2 mention counter, whatever the fuck. But back then, you know, you were doing side missions to get the unique gear. You know, like one of the examples that comes to mind straight away, Moxie's Ruby pistol. But you had other shit too, like the Pimpernel, for example. You know, like, or the Rough Rider shield, or fucking whatever. I could sit here all day and scratch my head and come up with like really cool things, but like whatever, I'm not going to waste your fucking time. But the point is, it's fucking retarded to give us like all these side missions and effectively give us zero fucking reason to run them. You know, I just don't get that at all. Right, so switching gears from open world bullshit, we really need to talk about the soundtrack, or the painful lack of a soundtrack, should I say. You could honestly convince me that the majority of this soundtrack was AI generated. Like, seriously. It is so bland, so forgettable. I actually do not know what the fuck happened here. Most of the time, there isn't even what would be considered a soundtrack. It's just you're there in the open world and it's this sort of like weird ambient atmospheric thing going on where you might hear the occasional chord or a handful of notes or whatever, but this game has a disturbing lack of soundtrack, and also soundtrack that's actually fucking memorable and enjoyable. Like, again, going back to Borderlands 2, some of the soundtrack was fucking unbelievable. Like, even the soundtrack for Bunker especially was amazing. You know, the ambient sort of theme that plays for Southern Shelf. Well, it's not ambient, it's actually a song, but you know, it's very chill, it's very mellow, but it's just like, when you go back and listen to these tracks from 2 and even 3 had some great tracks, even 1 had amazing tracks. It really added to 1's Mad Max post-apocalyptic, dusty, dirty, rusty world really well. But in 4, man, I don't know what the fuck happened here. The soundtrack is fucking terrible. It's bland, it's forgettable. Yeah, and it really hurts the experience overall. I really think the open world would have actually been made better if the soundtrack was just good. Like, if you look at something like Skyrim, Oblivion, whatever, like, the amazing, beautifully made soundtracks of those games enhance the open world, they enhance the exploration, but just having this here and there random fading in and fading out of ambient, like little subtle licks of what I'm assuming is supposed to be a soundtrack, it just falls flat, man. It just doesn't work at all. So yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened with the soundtrack in this game. There are other minor elements about Borderlands 4 that ultimately sink the whole experience. You see, the unfortunate thing about this game in particular is that it's not actually one specific huge issue you can really point to and say, yep, that's the reason. It's actually just been a case of death by 1,000 cuts. There's just a mountain of little annoying shitty things that ultimately destroy the fucking experience. Another one of which being the UI and just generally how things are presented to the player. Like, the UI is pretty fucking cumbersome to use, especially when you're trying to do things with class mods. It's just awkward and could be really improved. There's this goofy shit with the fucking bank where you go into your bank, you go to inspect an item, and then when you go out of the inspect, it doesn't take you out of the inspect, it takes you out of the fucking bank. So then you have to go into your fucking bank again and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, the UI is designed almost, you would be convinced to work against the player and fucking irritate them. It's actually kind of weird. And when, like I mentioned with Remivorous and the rare heads and rare skins, this is a subtle one, but I noticed it immediately. I fucking hate how every cosmetic and unlock is delivered to you through an almost cash shop-esque way, like animation. If you showed someone a screenshot of the way in which you unlock cosmetics or really access any item that has been rewarded to you in Borderlands 4, their first guess would probably be, is this a cash shop? Because it looks loot boxy. It looks like that kind of predatory microtransaction kind of bullshit. It isn't, but the way it is presented makes it look closer to a cash shop than is really necessary. And like I said before with Vermivorous, when you, or well, it's not just Vermivorous, but cosmetics in general, especially the heads, when you killed someone or something and it dropped a blue rarity, purple rarity, legendary rarity cosmetic, you actually saw the cosmetic in the world. It was lying in the loot pool. So you would run over to it and it was like a mannequin head, or it was a little skin token. And you could pick these up and keep them in your inventory, put them in your bank, or trade them online, or just give them to your friends. Like, it was cool as fuck when you killed, like, again, to use Vermivorous as an example, you ran over to the loot pile and you see a big fucking golden beam coming from a mannequin head, and you know, oh my god, I've got a fucking legendary head here. It's small, it's subtle, but that was, having it drop as actual loot that you can pick up was way fucking cooler and way more exciting than having it delivered to you through some like kind of weird cash shop-esque, microtransaction-esque user interface. You know what I mean? Again, another loss of flavour, really. Another thing that really needs addressed here, or talked about, is the severe lack of actual challenging difficulty. I don't know about you, but I virtually dumbassed my way through most of Borderlands 4. There was never a moment where I felt like I had hit a brick wall and I was like, oh shit, I need to actually go and get better gear, or, you know, reconfig my skill points, or just generally play better. There's nothing really like that. You just, it seems like every encounter in this fucking game, you can just throw your corpse at it and you win. Even the vaults, even the story bosses, even like everything. Like, there was no point in Borderlands 4 where I actually thought, holy fuck, this is kicking my teeth down my throat kind of shit. Like, it's one of the elements that makes the game so forgettable and so boring, is because the enemies just melt like paper mache, and there's no holy shit moment. Like, again, I'm going to fucking do it. I might as well put a counter of how many times I mentioned Borderlands 2, but sure, fuck it. In Borderlands 2, that game was not afraid to fucking ruin you if you let it. Like, normal mode was easy enough, sure, but even as soon as true Vault Hunter mode, there were times in that where that game was not afraid to fucking murder you. You know, like, constantly getting fight for your life and shit like that there. And that's not even to get into shit like UVHM, where you had to use slag almost on every fucking enemy. And then you had a tier above that with the Digistruct Peak unlocking the OP levels, and all the shit was just crazy difficult, but it was so engaging and exciting to do. Like, making your way through the full Digistruct Peak on like fucking OP6, OP7 or whatever, that shit was the perfect balance of fucking scary, frustrating, exciting, enjoyable. You know, it was. And again, the soundtrack for Digistruct Peak was amazing, so it added to the overall package. But yeah, in Borderlands 4, man, it's just fucking brain dead. Like, nothing challenges you in this game. There's no roadblocks, there's no gear checks, there's no skill point checks. It's just, like I said, you just dumbass your way through every encounter, and it makes the whole fucking experience just totally forgettable. Even shit like UVHM in Borderlands 4 is a fucking joke. And the way you unlock it, I swear to fucking God, I don't know if they meant to do this, but the biggest meme from Borderlands 3 was the whole talk to Lilith. Like, I'm fairly certain someone counted how many times the game makes you talk to Lilith after a story mission or whatever, and it's something like 19, 20 times, which is fucking disgusting, to be honest. So yeah, this whole talk to Lilith bullshit became like, you know, a negative meme kind of thing, and I would have thought they would try to get away from that, but unbelievably, and I don't know if it was intentional, but they actually created it again, because how you unlock your different UVHM tiers is you talk to Lilith 5 or 6 times. Yep, that's right. You go and talk to Lilith. She sends you out to do fucking, I think it's something like 2 side missions, or it's 2 bosses, and then a main story mission with modifiers. If you beat that, you go and talk to Lilith, and then she unlocks UVHM 2, and then you rinse and repeat this fucking 3 or 4 times until you get to UVHM 6. I swear to fucking God, I don't know if it was intentional, but they unironically recreated the talk to Lilith situation with how you unlock the UVHM tiers, and it's just like what the fuck, man? You know, like, have they learnt nothing? So much of the flavour, the signature elements that to me create an authentic Borderlands experience are missing and have just been seemingly willfully disposed for no real reason. Like I said before, it is a bit of a soft reboot for the series, sure, but if you'd have told me like 10 years ago or whatever that there would come a time where you wouldn't even see a single loot midget springing out of an ammo box, or you wouldn't stumble across a big super fat tubby enemy, you know, like, if you'd have told me that there wouldn't even be a single fucking slaughter shaft in the game, I would have thought you're fucking crazy. But here we are. For some reason, Gearbox are seemingly allergic to their own good ideas. Like, they refuse to bring their own victories with them. It's the same old fucking story every single time. Starting over, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, whatever fucking metaphor you want to use, they always wipe the slate clean and have to fucking play catch up every single fucking time. Like, it's crazy to me that after a decade, we are still having to ask, where the fuck are pearlescents? Where the fuck are raid bosses? Where the fuck are takedowns? Where the fuck are slaughter shafts? Etc, etc. Like, I don't know how they keep fucking this up. They start over with every single game. It is retarded. You know, like, sure, they have slowly started to bleed a few things into the mix, like that we now have a massive 1 raid boss, and we now have a massive 3 pearlescents, or is it 4? I'm not sure, because the cash DLC is out, but fucking whatever. The point is, 6 months ago this game launched, man. 6 months ago. That's half a year ago. And what do we have to show for it in terms of, you know, post-game support? Like, it's crazy to me that we are 6 months deep and this is all that has appeared in terms of the endgame. The endgame is still fucking dire. You know, like, again, Borderlands 2 mentioned again, but still, I'm going to do it. Fuck it. Back in Borderlands 2. By this time, 6 months after launch, way back in Borderlands 2, you had, I think it was 3 DLCs out. You had the Captain Scarlet DLC, which brought 2 raid bosses. You had the Torg DLC, which I think brought 1 raid boss. You had Hammerlocks, which brought 2 raid bosses, one of which was secret. And I'm fairly certain we were, you know, pretty close to getting things like UVHM or Digistruct Peak, the OP system. It was on the horizon. You know, it's like, fast forward to today, Borderlands 4 has been out 6 months, and we have 1 raid boss and a handful of pearls to show for it. It's shit that should have been in the game since launch. And like, it's not like they haven't displayed the ability to bring good ideas with them, because back in Borderlands 1, Cromorax the Invincible, the first raid boss in the series, he was introduced through the Secret Armory of General Knox DLC, right? What did they do for Borderlands 2? They saw that people fucking loved Cromorax. They loved hunting for pearls. They themselves must have thought the whole concept of a raid boss in a first-person shooter was cool as fuck. So what did they do? They brought the fucking idea with them. And day 1 of Borderlands 2, you could go and fight not only Terramorphous the Invincible, but there was also a secret raid boss, Vermivorous the Invincible. And he was actually much cooler in concept, because you had to allow the Varkids little insect creatures to pod all the way up from baby to Vermivorous, which was a super rare event, super hard to get, but holy fuck, when you got him, you were shitting yourself. Actually shitting yourself with excitement, because he's so hard to get, he's so tough to fight, and he doesn't function like a normal raid boss. Like, you don't pay Iridium and then fight in a set arena and stuff. Like, no, you anywhere there are Varkids, you could theoretically fight Vermivorous. So you could have a raid boss out wandering about in the actual zone instead of stuck in an arena. The whole thing was cool as fuck, and there was a sizable reward for it as well. If you managed to kill Vermivorous, if you managed to spawn him and then kill him, you would get the best rocket launcher in the fucking game. The Norfleet, an absolute screen-eating destroyer. Or you would get super rare cosmetics, like legendary heads, legendary skins, you know? It's not like this was just a novelty. Like, the reward was balanced by the fact that if you killed this motherfucker, you got the best rocket launcher in the game. So, like, and to see, again, Gearbox just discard this amazing concept. Like, I remember back in Borderlands 3, it was still on Pandora and there were still Varkids. And I remember me and my friends stopping and seeing if we could get a Varkid to pod all the way up, just for fun. And then later I learned that that just isn't a thing, that they just removed that. And it was one of the fucking coolest things ever. So Gearbox have this awful track record of introducing a cool idea that people love, and then for their next game, just discarding it for no fucking reason, and then playing catch up. And I don't know what the fuck the culture is at that studio. I don't know why this happens, but every single fucking time we have to fight. Like I said, 10 years ago, man, we had pearlescence and raid bosses and fucking, you know, slaughter shafts and takedowns. Like, it wasn't takedown in name, but Digistruct Peak was pretty much the first iteration of a takedown. Like, 10 years ago we had this shit, man, and they knew people fucking loved it, and yet they willfully threw it out for no fucking reason. I just don't get it. The loot system, again, was very disappointing for me. When I first saw it, I thought, okay, this could be pretty fucking exciting. It could make for some bonkers rolls, like some crazy rolled shit. But you can tell that there's a lot of safety rails on how the guns are generated in this game, because even when you get to like the late 30s, upper 40s, when you're really only using purple gear, you start to notice that the only fucking thing you ever seem to look out for is Jacob's Ricochet or Torg Impact. That's really all it boils down to. Like, the other things, Daedalus and stuff, yeah, can be great utility. And there's obviously some, like, underbarrel shit you can do. But mostly, you're really only keeping an eye out for these two manufacturers, which makes the loot feel really fucking stale really fucking quickly. And then again, like I mentioned before, pair that with the fact that there's next to no fucking difficulty in the game, then it just makes the loot feel pointless and boring, you know? I really did think whenever I first saw how the system would work with the different manufacturers and stuff, I really thought, like, okay, this could be fucking insane potentially. But yeah, again, soft reboot, a game for normies, I suppose, a game for, like, again, I'm going off on a bit of a fucking tangent here, but the more I really reflect on what I'm saying here, it just becomes abundantly clear that Borderlands 4, as painful as it might be to say, it just isn't for Borderlands fans. It just isn't. It's not for the asshole that was farming Chromorax fucking 15 years ago. It's not for that dickhead that was fucking, you know, pimper-habbing but through Digistruct Peak kind of shit. You know what I mean? It's not for that person. Borderlands 4 is for the type of dickhead who just buys and consumes the new product because it's the new product, you know, and they'll play the game for about a week max, and then they'll just move on to the next fucking game. They'll move on to the next FIFA or Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed or fucking whatever. Like, they're not sticking around to really get into the bowels of why Borderlands 4 is dog shit. Like, they're not hanging around to realize that the open world is tedious as fuck. They're not hanging around to realize that the soundtrack is dog shit. They're not hanging around to get bored of the loot system. They're not hanging around to realize that there's no fucking end game. You know what I mean? Etc. 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 Like, the audience that this game, I feel, has been built for primarily are the audience that will just disappear in a week. Probably haven't played this game since they first got it. You know, it is sad to see, but I think Borderlands 4, and again with the soft reboot too, like a whole new planet and shit, like, the more I reflect on what I'm saying here, it really does seem like this game was intended for a way more casual audience, who this game may even actually be their first Borderlands, you know? It just wasn't for me. It just isn't for a Borderlands fan. And as far as being a video game, like pressing buttons and seeing pixels move on a screen, it's fine. You know, it's a pretty solid shooter. It's flashy. You know, it's not the worst thing you could do with, you know, a rainy afternoon. Like, it's fine. But as far as being a good Borderlands game, no, it's fucking terrible. Of course, you can't really discuss Borderlands 4 without mentioning the absolutely horrendous performance, especially on PC. Crashes, fucking stuttering, whatever, the usual bullshit. Like, even on NASA computers with 5080s, 5090s, people were still crashing. People couldn't go longer than fucking 20 minutes without stuttering or like frame dropping. And to be honest, while that is in and of itself not good for a fucking $70 game, it actually makes me wonder, and this is pretty tinfoil, I don't know, this is my own crackpot conspiracy theory, so it could be completely horseshit, but I get the impression that Borderlands 4 was just rushed out the door far sooner than it should have been. And the reason I think this was this potentially to recoup some of the losses they incurred from the unbelievable bomb that was that dog shit movie. You probably even forgot that there was a Borderlands movie with Kate Blanchett and fucking Jack Black, whatever, like a year ago or whatever. Who knows? I don't know how the money really worked there. Maybe Gearbox just sold the IP rights to, I think it was Lionsgate or something. Maybe they lost very little money in the actual production of that film. But my own crackpot theory is that Borderlands 4 was rushed out the fucking door to try and claw back some of the losses they got from that absolute stinker of a film. Because it would actually explain like why the performance was fucking horrible. It would explain why, once again, the end game is fucking barren. It would explain a few things, but again, I don't know for sure. But to get back to my original point, the performance was absolutely fucking shocking when it launched. You can tell that there has been quite the negative reaction to this game as a whole. You know, of course you have the fanboys and hive minders and stuff, like Reddit and YouTube especially. Like, if you dare to critique this game or push back against it in any shape or form, there are a certain section of people that are just ready to defend the $1 million company. Like, how dare you not like this fucking dog shit game? But you can, when you zoom out a little bit, you can see that this game has fallen off a fucking cliff, and for good reason. Like, the numbers are absolutely embarrassing. And yeah, okay, every game has its fall off, sure. Every game does slowly bleed players until you're just sort of left with the bedrock hardcore. Like, it happens to every game. But with Borderlands 4, it has been rather sharp and rather noticeable. And it's just because of all this bullshit I've mentioned today. There's just, like I said, it's no main issue. It's just a whole bunch of shitty little issues that have completely fucking ruined this game. And to be honest, I don't actually know if there is a way back for Borderlands 4 at this point. Because, like, what are they going to do? Redo the entire soundtrack? Scrap the open world? Like, I just don't know if there is a way to actually salvage this game. We should just write it off as the weird open world experiment and just move on with Borderlands 5 and get back to basics with just well thought out, well connected, well designed, memorable zones that have their own, you know, soundtracks and stuff like that, you know, enemy encounters and stuff like that there. Not this open world bullshit, because it just did not work at all.